Hello everyone, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Meg, and today I'm going to be doing a what I'm planting, what I'm growing in May. And if you don't know me, I live in North Carolina. I'm in zone 8A. I have a backyard garden full of raised beds. I do a little bit of in-ground planting as well with perennials and flowers, but most of my vegetable planting are in my raised beds. So it is finally May here in North Carolina. Actually, it's about mid-May. So this is the month that our gardens are flourishing. We're getting things in the ground if you haven't already. If you already planted your garden in April, that's great. But if you haven't yet and you're feeling behind, don't feel behind, because North Carolina, we have a really long growing season. May is still a perfect time to start a garden. Even June here, like, you have a lot of time. So even though I did plant out most of my garden, I am still planting certain things. So I'm gonna kind of give you guys a little bit of a garden tour, show you what I planted in April, because I did not do a what I'm planting in April video. I'm really sorry about that, honestly. I was struggling a little bit in April. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I was struggling. I started a new medication for my MS and it really kicked my butt, and it's still kind of kicking my butt. I'm still kind of like getting through the side effects of that, and kind of like my body's adjusting. But yeah, so that's where I was pretty much in bed all April, other than planting out my garden the few days that I was out here planting. But anyway, I'm gonna kind of show you guys what's going on in my garden. I'll take you guys through the things that I have already planted that you can still plant this month. And then we'll actually do a little bit of planting today, because we have a string of thunderstorms this week. It has been raining for a few days. Today is like a break in the rain, although it's still really cloudy. And then we are gonna have a few more days of rain the next coming days. So it's the perfect time to get seeds in the ground right before a rain. Okay, so I'm excited to take you guys around the garden and show you guys what I've already planted. What's popping up from my what to grow in March video. If you haven't seen that video and you want to check that out, just to kind of like see the things that I planted from seed in that video, and now they're popping up and they're thriving. It's just cool to see like progress in the garden. And not only the things that I direct sowed, but my seedlings that I planted as well. So my tomato, eggplant, and peppers, they are all out in the garden, but I have picked up some from the nursery that I'm going to be planting today as well. So starting off with tomatoes, if you have tomato seedlings that you started, you probably have those planted out by now. If you don't, go ahead and harden those off, get them in the ground. I'm going to show you guys the ones that I planted in late April. So in this bed, I've planted 4 of my dwarf tomato plants. That's why I've got them really close together. They are dwarves, and you can tell this by how compact these plants are. You can see how compact they're growing. Dwarf indeterminate tomatoes are my new loves in the garden. They don't need anything other than this simple stake. If you haven't seen my video about dwarf indeterminate tomatoes, go and watch it, and I probably will convince you to grow these. So this is the dwarf beauty king one. This one is the purple rain. That one is my favorite. Also, look at this little thing that I made in pottery class. So I made this little fairy house in pottery class. My fiance and I have been taking some pottery classes here and there. It's just something really fun to do for like date night. And isn't this the cutest little fairy house? Look at the little mushroom steps. So cute. And if you didn't know, you're supposed to make fairy houses with the door open, and that is supposed to welcome the fairies. So I have mine right here, and I'll show you guys my fiance's, but I just put it right there. Anyway, we have the chocolate lightning here. And then this is the dwarf firebird sweet. These dwarf tomatoes are looking really good. I do need to come in here and I need to have a garden tour day. I need to prune off these lower leaves here that are getting spotty, getting diseased. They're really close to the ground. We don't really want any leaves touching the ground. So I need to have a day where I'm just coming out here and I'm pruning off those leaves, and also pruning off these little suckers. And honestly, I can go ahead and put that one. I'm a pretty aggressive pruner when it comes to tomatoes. They grow so fast that even though I just took off like a good half of the plant, it doesn't matter to the plant. It's going to be fine. It's going to grow those new leaves and more in like 2 days. Those are just 4 of the tomatoes. Let me go find the other ones. So over in this bed, I've got 2 more of the dwarf tomatoes here and then 2 of the peppers up here in the front. But this tomato is the Amish Gold. This one is also a dwarf. Then this one, we've got the dwarf Russian Swirl. This one here. And it's got this little beet right beside of it. This random beet is growing right here that I chaos gardened a long time ago. It just kind of popped up out of nowhere. And we're still not done. I have one more place that I planted my dwarf tomatoes. And then I'm planting more tomatoes today. I'm kind of going overboard a little bit. It's okay. Every year. This happens every year. Over in this bed, on half of this bed, I have 3 dwarf tomatoes back there. I have 2 peppers in the middle, and then I have 2 of my little micro tomatoes here up front. And then over on this side, I've got my cucumber trellis. So this tomato is the dwarf modern Roman. This one is the glacier bush. This one is the antho pink panther, and it's not really getting off to a great start. I'm not sure what's up with that one. It kind of died back and then it started growing again, and now it's kind of looking weird. I don't know if it's diseased. I think I probably just need to pull it. Here up front we have our orange hat tomatoes. These are micro tomatoes. Look at how tiny this plant is, and look, it's already flowering. Insane. The micro tomatoes are so cool. They only get to be about 6 inches tall, but they are like chock full of these little cherry tomatoes, and they're delicious. So I have this one, and then I have this one as well. And like I said, they only get like 6 inches tall. So this is kind of staggered as smallest plants, and then the peppers will be kind of a medium size, and then the tomatoes will grow up this way. Planted a tomato right here too, because the sun, it hits this way. So this peeking out the side, it's still gonna get sun, and then I'm gonna put a pole here. I'm just trying to squeeze everything I possibly can. But this one is from Burpee, and this is the bush steak hybrid. So this is also a dwarf type, and this one is beautiful. Next is peppers. If you don't have your peppers in the ground yet, go ahead and get those in ASAP. I've kind of already showed you guys a few of my pepper plants. But let me just show you a few more. So in this bed here, I kind of have a row of 4 of them, and also there's some eggplants in here as well. This one is kind of, I need to cut back this sage plant because it's kind of trying to encroach on this one. But this is the what is this one? The Cornito Rosso pepper. I'm gonna have to cut back all of this and just kind of give it its space. This one is the Sugar Rush Peach, and all my peppers are still about this height. They're still small because peppers really love the heat. They really don't get going until it gets really hot here. I'd say they're kind of getting established in May, and then June is when they really just start taking off. This one's a candy cane pepper, so it's going to be a variegated one. This one is the Luchwar pepper, so this is a Hungarian paprika pepper. I'm really excited about that one. And here I've got 3 eggplants. So there's one there, and then one here. The eggplants are getting eaten alive by, I think, flea beetles. I definitely have a flea beetle issue here. I have a couple of other peppers over here. These 2 are mammoth jalapenos. Look at this volunteer borage. It is magnificent. I did not plant this. I've got to show you guys all the volunteer plants that are popping up this year, because I did not have to plant a lot of things in my garden this year. I'm like stunned by everything that I didn't have to plant because I just let volunteers come up. So next are your cucurbits. So cucumbers, melons, squash. Either start them in like seed pots and then transplant them out, or just direct sow them in the ground. I like to just direct sow them, but if you live somewhere where you have like a huge slug issue, or it's hard to get your seedlings started direct sowing them, then just go ahead and do them in in pots. And actually, Cucurbits, they're sensitive to root disturbance. If you have a soil block, I would do soil blocks for them because they really like that over like the plastic trays. I already showed you guys my one cucumber over here. I actually bought this one from the store. It's a parthenocarpic type of cucumber, meaning it doesn't produce any male flowers. It's only female. And this thing is pumping out cucumbers at an alarming rate. There's 2 here, and it's like every flower is female. So every single one of those is going to be a cucumber. I've also started some cucumber seedlings over here, and they're starting to pop up. I think that one's actually a melon. But yeah, these are starting to pop up, starting to look good. I need to thin them out. Squash seedlings popping up over here. This is a Seminole pumpkin. Got one over here and another one over here. I need to move some of these volunteer beans that have popped up because they're kind of trying to shade it out. So I'm just gonna get those out of the way. Don't worry, there are plenty of other volunteer beans. These are noodle beans. They're popping up everywhere this year. Speaking of beans, if you haven't already, go ahead and plant out your beans, your bush beans, your pole beans, noodle beans if you're planting them. Get them in the ground. Basically, plant everything in the ground in May. Get everything for the summer in the ground. In this bed, I planted it full of bush beans and it's a little bit spotty. I think that there was a germination issue with the bean packet. So today I'm going to go in and fill in the gaps with some other bush beans, and I planted some marigolds around the outside. I think I'm actually going to cover this whole thing with row cover because I have a huge problem with bean beetles and I don't want that problem this year. But all of the little bush beans are popping up. They're looking great. So before we move on to the things that I am direct sowing right now, as in today, I want to show you guys all the volunteers because I have a lot of volunteers I'm really excited about. I totally just let a ton of things go to seed last fall, and I just left it, and I'm really pleased to see what has popped up. Starting over here, there's this like pyramid grow tower that I haven't put soil in yet because I think I'm going to move it. Because all these sunflowers have popped up here. These are volunteer sunflowers. I had a sunflower here last year and it went to seed. The birds kind of helped me disperse it. And now there's so many sunflowers popping up all over the garden this year. But there's 3 big ones here. Actually, there's 4, but that one looks a little wimpy. I don't know if that one's gonna make it. I swear volunteer sunflowers end up being the biggest, most beautiful, best sunflowers I've ever grown, and I didn't even do anything. I didn't plant them. I think sunflowers, when they grow in ground, they just have such more opportunity to grow to their biggest, best ability, and they're just the best. I'm so excited for all the sunflowers. There's 3 there, and then there's 1 right here. These 2 zinnias, looks like zinnias right here that are popping up. Those are volunteers. I didn't plant those. My little native garden patch beside the greenhouse, I've got a volunteer squash. Didn't plant that. I have no idea what kind of squash that is. And then there's a little volunteer tomato hiding in here in the milkweed. This is all milkweed right here. I don't know whether to cut back some of the milkweed and let the tomato grow or just rip out the tomato. I have no idea. I didn't even plant tomatoes anywhere near here last year. And then I also have a ground cherry over here, which I didn't plant ground cherries anywhere near here last year either. So all the wildlife is just really helping me plant in the most random spots. But yeah, this is a ground cherry. It's even starting to flower. I'm just gonna leave it here. In front of the greenhouse, there's 2 more sunflowers here. I had a little dwarf sunflower planted in a container right here last year, so I think these 2 might be the dwarf type. And last year I had a dill that was planted in the green stalk, and it went to flower, and there's dill everywhere in the green stalk now. But also behind the green stalk here in ground, there's so much dill growing. I dropped an egg there. But there's so many little dill plants popping up all over here. And the chickens wish that they could get to it, but they can't. But don't worry, they get plenty. They get plenty of garden treats. There's a little volunteer anise hyssop plant, which is no surprise. This is my my big mama anise hyssop plant that is just growing so crazy this year. But I'm gonna let that one grow just because I love anise hyssop. It's also a native plant. We've also got a little volunteer tomato popping up here, and I don't know, it's looking a little wimpy, but I'm gonna put a stake here and just let it grow and see what happens. Got volunteer Mexican sunflowers here. I actually want to dig these up and move them. There's 4 plants here. I'm gonna dig them up and move them because I don't want them in this bed kind of shading everything else out. Another, I think this is a sunflower, by the way. I think this is a little dwarf sunflower. Also, this is what I do. If I see anything that is a volunteer and not a weed, I always cover it with this wire container, because my fiance, he helps me weed in the garden. He has no idea what plants, like anything about plants. And so I'm always like, if it has a basket over it, do not pull it. It is a volunteer, not a weed. I get asked a lot, like, how do you know things are volunteers and not weeds? And honestly, it just comes with time. It just comes with experience. It just comes with observing what things look like as seedlings so that you can learn to identify them, like very specific plants. So now I can look and say, that's a chamomile, that's a zinnia, or that's a sunflower, or like that's a tomato or whatever. But there was a time where I didn't know. I had no idea. It just comes with time. Another little volunteer sunflower. We're getting kind of into a weedy patch in the garden. There's so many weeds over here. As you can see, I really need to like pull weeds in the pathways. And yes, we stay pulling weeds. Like, weeding is just part of gardening. There's no way around it, really. Over here, there's 2 more volunteer sunflowers here and here. And last year, there was a branching sunflower over here. It was beautiful. So I hope that it looks the exact same as it did last year because it was so pretty. There's even 2 more little ones right here. And yes, I'm letting every single volunteer pop up this year. I don't care if I have to like walk around them. I don't care. They've worked hard to be here. They deserve to be here. I've got some volunteer marigolds under here. So like, okay, for example, this is a weed. This is volunteer cilantro, but then this clover is a little weed, or I think that's sorrel actually. But you learn over time to like pick out the little ones that you don't want to grow. But yeah, that's cilantro. And then here is another volunteer marigold. And then like I was saying earlier, there's a ton of volunteer noodle beans over here by the trellis because I grow noodle beans here every year and I just let some of them rot and then they just pop back up the next year and I don't have to plant them. Here is a big, beautiful volunteer chamomile that popped up randomly in this pathway this year. It is full of little flowers. I actually need to harvest all of these and dry them out for tea, but chamomile is so beautiful. I think chamomile is actually one of my favorite things to grow ever. The flowers are just so fun. They're like tiny and bouncy and they make great tea. They smell nice. I just love chamomile. More volunteer borage over here in my little walking onion patch borage. And then also a lot of volunteer dill. I had dill here last year, planted along with the walking onions. And there's so much dill all through here. So much dill. And the little walking onions are starting to flower, put out their little bulbils, and have so many. Here's another borage. It's actually starting to flower. Borage is definitely one of those underrated flowers. They're so pretty, and they're just a really great overall companion plant. And the flowers are edible. If you've never tasted them, they taste like cucumber. They're really great in salads. Also, I wanted to show you guys the absolute new love of my life. I don't know if you guys remember, but last year I had just a regular hose that would get so tangled and so coiled, and it was just such a nightmare. It was such a nightmare to have in the garden. I got myself a Hoselink. Look at this. This thing swivels. So nice. And it's a retractable hose. It's 82 feet, which reaches across my entire garden. It's just so easy to use, so easy to water all of my plants with. There are all kinds of different attachments that they have. They have a wand attachment. It's not just this one. I just have this one here on here right now, but I do have the wand attachment that I'm probably going to switch it to. Then when I'm done using it, I just give it a little tug to start the retraction, and it starts retracting it. And then done. So much nicer to have it up off the ground, put away nicely. I'll put all the information for you guys in the description if you want to get yourself one. From the garden center, I picked up some tomatillos because my tomatillo seedlings sadly did not make it. They died. I don't know what happened. I also picked up some Roma tomatoes because I realized that I completely neglected to plant any paste tomato seedlings. That's so unlike me. I'm gonna blame it on the lesions, because how could I just forget my paste tomatoes? Like, canning is a huge part of my summer. And I think I was so focused and honed in on the dwarf tomatoes that I forgot about the paste tomatoes. So they're just like plants that I picked up from Ace Hardware or Home Depot or somewhere. They're Bonnie plants. This one's called Little Napoli, which is a compact Roma tomato. So Roma tomatoes and paste tomatoes usually are determinate, and they're usually compact anyway. So when I saw that there was a compact Roma plant, I was like, even more compact than usual, I'm interested, because you know I'm always about the compact tomato plants. So I'm excited actually to grow this variety this year, just to test it out. I'm always trying to make things easier for myself, especially tomato growing, just because it's May and you might feel behind, like on social media, looking at everyone else's gardens and looking at how far along they are in the process. That means nothing. You can still plant an entire garden from scratch right now in May. Even in June, you can plant an entire garden from scratch, because we live in North Carolina. We have a very long growing season. We are very fortunate. There's a lot that you can still plant, and you still have a lot of time. Even if you don't have your beds built yet, like, there's still so much time. So don't feel behind. I'm actually always planting throughout the whole summer. If a spot opens in the garden, like, some spots are going to open when I get rid of the spring stuff, like the kale and the radishes and all of that. Like, some spots are going to open. Those are going to be filled. I'm not gonna say like, oh, well, it's too late. Like, no, I'm gonna go to a garden center and I'm gonna pick up plants and I'm gonna fill those spots. Apart from those plants that I picked up, I also need to plant corn. I'm gonna direct sow that. I need to plant okra. And I need to plant some flowers. Like, I want more nasturtium, I want more zinnias. Okay, so I've kind of set out the plants that I want to plant in this long skinny bed here. And they're gonna kind of be crammed together. I've got 4 of those compact Romas, and I'm gonna plant 2 tomatillos there at the end. So 6 plants total. This is a 6-foot long bed, so it's like you just using square foot gardening, 1 plant per square foot. Still a little bit crammed, but it's gonna be fine. Planting spacing rules were just meant to be broken. So I'm just gonna remove these bottom leaves. And since this is a determinate tomato, I don't want to remove any suckers that are above the first flower set, but the ones that are below it are fine. And it actually already has a little tomato growing already on here, but this sucker right here is below that first flower set, so I'm gonna go ahead and trim that one off. But all the rest of the suckers for determinates, like your paste tomatoes, I'm gonna leave them on there, because if we take those off, we're just decreasing our harvest. Because determinate tomatoes, they have a set number of tomatoes that they're gonna produce, and they produce them in flushes all at once, whereas indeterminate, they don't have a set number and they're just gonna keep producing. So it's fine if you take off those suckers, but with determinates, we don't want to do that. This is new compost, by the way. I just kind of topped this bed up with it. That's why it's kind of dry, but I'll have to water these in. Well, it's gonna rain, so nature's gonna water it for me. I'm also gonna plant in some marigolds just along the outside of the bed. I love this little scooper. kind of in between the tomatoes, all around the outside. I'm gonna go all around the bed because I got a lot of marigolds. I got this all planted out. I got my 4 Roma tomatoes and then the 2 tomatillos here at the end with some little marigolds in between, just kind of to create like a little pest barrier around the tomatoes. And then I topped up with mulch, so that one is good to go. I'm kind of losing track of time here. It's getting really dark and really cloudy. It's actually looking like it could storm any moment, so I gotta hurry up. Let's plant out the corn, okra, and beans, and then we'll move on to the flowers. So for corn this year, I'm gonna try sweet corn, which is this ultraviolet hybrid from Burpee. It's like this pretty purple colored corn. I tried to grow it last year. I have a really hard time with corn. I don't have a hard time growing it to harvest. I have a hard time it not being blown over. Here in North Carolina, I grew corn last year. I was really proud of it, and it was almost ready. It was almost ready, and then Hurricane Helene came and blew the whole thing over, and that's happened several times. We have some gnarly storms here, and I don't know what it is about my backyard, but my backyard gets beat up every time. And then I'll talk to a friend down the street and they're like, oh, it wasn't even that bad here. And I'm like, okay. For beans, I'm gonna go with these Blue Lake bush beans. I have planted already like a trio from Botanical Interests in there. But yeah, the germination rate was really low, which is unlike Botanical Interests. Maybe it was an old seed packet or something, but I have this from Fairy Morse on hand, so I'm just gonna plant these. And then for okra, I always go with Clemson Spineless. This is from Kids Seed Company. Also love this company. It's a local company from Asheville, family owned. I have to plant Clemson Spineless because I am allergic to spined okra. It causes some kind of skin irritation on my body, so I always have to just plant good old Clemson Spineless. What I'm thinking is I'm gonna plant the okra in with the beans. That's what I'm thinking. Okra grows really tall, so it might be nice to have the tall okra and then the bush beans along the base. I'm just gonna kind of plant the okra here in these gaps. I really think I only need like 2 or 3 plants because I don't eat a ton of okra. I just really like it in stews. I also like to pickle it if I have enough of it on hand. So I'm just gonna put like 1 here right in the middle of this gap, and then I'll plant bush beans all around it. And the okra, like once it gets going, it gets going. Like it grows really fast, and okra really likes heat. It comes from Africa, so it really, I think it comes from Africa, right? I think so. It really loves heat. Anyway, gonna plant another one here in this gap right here. Another one back here in this gap. And I'm just gonna dot some of these bush beans kind of all around. I'm just kind of dropping a bean there and then pushing it in the dirt. I have a little dilemma because I've decided that this is where I want to plant corn, because corn grows best in condensed patches, and with this I could wrap, like I could put stakes and wrap twine around it and keep it hopefully vertical. But this is where I chaos gardened the radish and carrots, and look at how great they're doing. Look at these radishes. I don't know if you guys remember, but I planted what are called Crimson Giant, and like look at how giant they are. Not all of them, but some of them are pretty huge. So I need to harvest these, and I am not gonna do that today because I need to think of what I'm gonna do with them. I would like to maybe pickle them, and I'm running out of time, so I'm not gonna plant corn today. There's also like a random tomato growing out of here. It looks like 2 tomatoes actually. Also, the carrots are starting to pop up, so I want to harvest all the radishes, see what I'm looking at as far as carrots. Hopefully I can like plant the corn around the carrots, and then by the time the corn is like getting too tall and in the way, I can just like harvest these carrots. I could also grow corn in this bed, and I have before, and it was successful in this bed. It's attached to a squash trellis, so I could grow like cucumbers or squash up the trellis, and then like a row of corn here, or a few rows of corn. But this is full of random things. I've got leeks in here that are about to go to flower. I've got flowering cilantro in here. I've got flowering carrots in here, and I really want them to go to seed so I can get some carrot seeds. So I don't want to like rip everything out quite yet. And honestly, corn can be planted pretty late in the season. It's another heat loving crop. So I honestly might just wait to plant out my corn in June even. Decisions. Because it's like I also want to get something started to grow up this side. I have cucumbers planted over here on the other side that are coming up, but there's not going to be anything growing up on this side. And I can't plant anything because this is in the way and it'll shade it out. So I am kind of at a standstill. I don't know what to do. I could rip everything else out except for the carrots, and then there would probably be a lot more space because honestly a lot of this is cilantro, flowering cilantro. But I also want to leave this for the pollinators. All of the beneficial insects, they love cilantro flowers and they flock to it. So I don't know what to do. Let me know. What do you guys think I should do? Should I like rip it out and plant new things? Should I just leave this alone and just kind of like not have anything grow up the side? I don't know. We've got all kinds of nasturtiums here, and I want to plant every single one. They're all so beautiful. I love, love, love nasturtium. They do really well here in the summer. Also love zinnias. I've got those 2 volunteers coming up, but I want to plant this fireball blend, this giant white. This I've planted for like 4 years in a row now. It is so beautiful. It is a huge, huge plant, but it is gorgeous. And then this giant coral. So anywhere there's like a pocket of emptiness around the outside of a bed, so that's usually what I do is I plant the main crops in the middle of the bed. And then around the outside, I'm planting flowers, I'm planting herbs. Over here, I've got the calendula that we planted back in March. They're about to actually flower. And then here's some cilantro that is also another volunteer. Every cilantro that I have in my garden is volunteer because I never have to replant it, as you can see with the other cilantro that's flowering. But every time I see an empty space on the outside, that is where I plant either a flower or an herb, and I try to mix it up. Keep it interesting. That actually was like too deep of a hole, I think. And honestly, I kind of like to like cram them, so we'll do a couple. Okay. Speaking of zinnias, I just noticed these 2 zinnia seedlings that are growing in my fire pit gravel. I'm gonna leave them because if they're working that hard, they deserve to be there. I'll put a cage over them so Ryan doesn't touch them. We'll do a nasturtium here in this tomato bed. Nasturtiums make great companion plants. Do a nasturtium here. Some of these seeds are a bit older, so I'm planting a ton just because they're a bit older. I don't know if they are going to germinate or not. Like this packet says it's from 2021, which is a bit old for nasturtiums, I think. We'll also plant a few in this new bed that I just planted out, kind of in between the marigolds, or like beside of the marigolds. I think they'll be really pretty here because they do drape down. Like nasturtiums are very low lying plants and they'll fall and drape down. As far as the zinnias, the giant ones get truly giant, so I have to be kind of strategic about where I place them. They have done well in the past in a corner of a bed. They will kind of like drape over and fall out, and they won't really interfere much with the other plants. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I just don't know which bed would be best for this. So this bed I haven't planted much in yet. There are some things going on. I've got my passion vine climbing up that trellis. I've got some onions that are flowering. By the way, if you've never seen a flowering onion, they're so cool. So cool. And then there's also that big kale plant that is flowering, and I'm probably gonna remove at some point, but I have no idea what I want to do with this bed yet. So I'm thinking I'll just go ahead and plant a giant zinnia right here in this corner. I really should have started some in seed trays and then transplanted them in ground, but I did not do that. I could still do that. There's still time to do that, and I probably will after I utilize any raised bed space that I want to utilize. I just saw a hummingbird. Oh my God, let me see if I can get him on camera. Oh, he's over there. A good little space right here for maybe a giant white, because it's just right next to the shed. There's a lot of space for it to grow out that way. I don't know, am I overcrowding? Hopefully not. I always get myself in trouble every year with just like cramming a bunch of stuff. It's hard to foresee the future and how large things are gonna get, even though I know exactly how large they get, and I still do it. I still don't learn my lesson. I just tell myself it's always better to overplant than to underplant. By the way, my Camilla bush is starting to bloom, and it smells heavenly. This is probably not Camilla, gardenia, sorry. My gardenia bush. Gardenia is the best smell in the world. Like I could just smell it all day. It's so good. Also, my little jasmine trellis is starting to bloom. Also, check out my fig tree over here in this container. This thing is going crazy. I wasn't expecting it to grow this big this year. It's only on its second year. It is insane. Also, check out my little nectarine tree. There are so many little nectarines on this tree. I actually need to come through here and prune off a ton of them because these branches are really like weighing down. There's just a bunch on here. This is the most it's ever fruited. I'm so excited. If you want to know more about all of my fruit in containers, I did just post like a full guide to how I grow fruit in containers, and you should check it out. All right, guys, I think that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up. It is about to rain, unfortunately. Thank you for coming along with me on this what I plant in May / garden tour / vlog kind of video. Don't really know. It kind of like started out one way and is like ending another way, but that's okay. Let me know in the comments what's happening in your garden right now. What are you planting? What are you looking forward to plant? Just give me like a rundown of your garden. I always love reading what's going on in you guys' gardens, just because it's so cool how we're just all in different environments. We're all in different stages of the growing season, and I just think it's really cool. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Substack. Also, the Garden Girls podcast is officially back for season 2. We did take a little bit of a hiatus. We all had like a lot going on in our lives, so we just took a little bit of a break, but we are officially back. We are posting every Wednesday. So if you're into podcasts, please go and check out the Garden Girls podcast, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.